All right. So today I have a very special guest, and I am so thrilled and excited to introduce you all to her. Rosie, welcome to the podcast. Thank you so much for being here.
Oh, thank you for having me. This is cool.
Yes, well, it's going to be a lot of fun today. It's going to be a really, I think, interesting and, like I said, juicy conversation because you just have so much that I am interested in talking about. And I know a lot of people listening and watching to the podcast are just going to be blown away by everything that you're doing and everything that you've got going on. So, why don't we start off with you introducing yourself and letting us know exactly what it is that you do?
Oh, wow. I think I'm Rosie Cruz. My company is called Juicy Gems. Um, it started out as, well, I always had this attraction to, as a kid, just like rocks. And I know there's tons of people out there like this, just attracted to like the
Yes.
mineral exposure out there. And I live in California, and surprisingly, there is quite a lot here. Um, but I grew up and then I went in and out of it, but it wasn't until probably, uh, I don't know, 2017, my husband and I were just like started to build this collection. And then, of course, 2020 hit, and I go, you know what I always really wanted to do was just make a business out of this. Plus, he told me I couldn't bring any more home. I was just really
Oh gosh, I know what
okay,
that's like. I know what that is like.
but he would pick up things too. So it was like, okay, come on. And then we just kind of went full out in 21 and decided, well, we were going to open a retail shop in 21. It's very uh, baffling to try and figure out what you're going to do in a physical retail shop. So um, I made jewelry. My kids and I, my girls and I would always like make stuff, and we just went ahead and took a visit to the mineral show in Tucson, which was just awe inspiring.
Yes.
I honestly think everybody should go, and that's like something to go see. It's like one of the great wonders of the world, I think, because you'll find so much education there, and people that you just crystals aren't a just a metaphysical arena.
Right,
It
right.
is, they're geologists, they're people from all over the world come. This is like history in like present, like all
Hmm.
these minerals and multi-mineral stones that show up, by different prospectors. You just see like the land, and you can feel the vibe of the land that it comes from. So it just was this inspiring event, and the event is all over Tucson. Like there's not like one single event. You don't just go to the convention center and see this. It is everywhere saturated.
Yes.
And so, we just thought, well, okay, we're going to do this. We're going to go ahead, and we had enough knowledge of and passion for minerals and stones that I just picked up things that I thought were interesting and fun. And of course, I like to educate people, but at the same time, I also there's the comment like the top 10, and to be able to have the top 10 most well known crystals to introduce to people, and give them an understanding of I guess geological formation, and then that leads into jewelry. Um,
Right.
Jewelry is a love. But also um, understanding that everything we wear, everything we do is a statement of who we are, and so jewelry
Yes.
is a statement of who we are. It's an expression. What you wear is an expression. And that ties into all sorts of like people out there who understand branding and all that will be able to define it a little better. But I'm a casual girl. I'm an active girl. I love I make these gemstone bracelets, and this is actually how it started. It's just a simple, like bracelet making.
That's
And then,
beautiful.
and then and then of course, like structuring gemstones into other bezels and other things. But yeah, that's how we got started. Long story. um, and then of course, I mean, I'm starting to remember, like, understand, and there are other purposes of why I still make jewelry. But yeah. Anyway.
Yeah, because, as jewelry lovers, a lot of times it's not only about the jewelry piece specifically, but it's also about, at least as it relates to vintage and handmade jewelry, the story behind it, right? And so a lot of us kind of get drawn in by not only the beauty of the piece, but what it means, where it comes from,
Mm-hmm.
why we want to wear certain pieces. And I've always been really into crystals and gemstones. For those of you that don't know, I used to sell crystals and gemstones a lot. Like, I had a whole business doing that, but then I realized it just was too big and bulky and heavy for me to store all these crystals and specimens and everything. And so I kind of switched into jewelry, but I've never gotten over my love for crystals. I still have hundreds of them around my house, and I
Uh-huh.
probably always will. But so let's talk about, like, when you make jewelry, do you think about, I guess, more about, what the crystal or gemstone means as you construct the piece, or is it specifically just aesthetics and what you think is going to look good, or maybe a combination of the two?
I do always keep in mind the metaphysical properties of
Hmm.
gemstones, always. And and part of it is my experience uh, with non-traditional healing. And I'm not getting woo-woo here. I'm talking about my acupuncturist, who
It's okay. I like woo
also loves crystals, but has has practices around with crystals and utilizes them in some of his work. And one time, surprisingly, as much as I know about it, I'm always astonished at how other people utilize it. And true story, I had this neck pain. I was at my acupuncturist, and he's a good friend now, and he knows my entire family. And I was just sitting there, and he asked, well, tell me what's going on with you. Just go through, like, the last couple of weeks, what, physically, emotionally, like, all these things. So I just started to just blab. And then he goes, no, I really want to hear the deep emotion about it. And then he said, um, your liver locks in a lot of your emotion, and just the way you're
Oh.
expressing it is not,
Hmm.
you're not letting go. And I go, oh my God. That was my reaction. I could still feel it in my body. And just, when you're a business person, you're constantly working, you're constantly thinking, and you set things aside. You set yourself aside a lot of times. And so I think that was probably the process. And he says, well, he pulled out a tiger eye, and then he had pressed it against my neck and told me to basically, continue to talk about it, and let's just open up. And I kid you not, 15 seconds later, it wasn't even 15 seconds, that neck pain disappeared. And I was like, how did that happen? He does amazing things too in other appointments that I've had, but that was the most, like, memorable experience I've had with gemstones personally. And
Hmm.
he did explain that, your gemstone, tiger eye, is focused in on your second chakra, where your organs are. It helps you to release any deep emotion. And I go, how do you know that? And so that's what
Right.
I learned. He had a deep love for crystals too, and a deep knowledge of how
Hmm.
they work. So making jewelry, and, like, talking to, uh, people who peruse through the open markets, and they're looking for something. And I just listen to what they're looking for. And I listen to how they talk, and, like, what they hit on. And so I will say, hey, this might work for you, and you might love this. Try it on. And usually when they do try it on, they're like, oh, And so,
Right.
but yeah, so I do keep in mind the mineral and a lot of the metaphysical properties, and tuning into people what they're seeking.
All right, so that leads me to one of the basic questions I get asked a lot. And how can someone get started learning about crystals and gemstones and the minerals and all the things that go along with it? Because it's very overwhelming. I mean, a lot of people know the basics like amethyst, rose quartz, clear quartz. Like a lot of people kind of know those, but
Mm-hmm.
how would you recommend someone get started learning about crystals and gemstones and the properties that they may or may not have?
You just have to be open,
Mhm.
and, and it really has to be an attraction.
Mhm.
Learning about
Right.
them, you could, if you're if one is more led by the mind, then probably an approach to, let's say, uh, a geological approach to it would be better. I mean, you can go on
Mhm.
Instagram and you can see some of these prospectors out there that are just digging, 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 and they find caves and they go into the caves and they go deep down, and
Right.
you see their experience and how they pull out these crystals, and how do they even find them in the first place? Like, what makes them think that, oh, that's a crystal cave? Like you pick up things here and there. And so anybody who's led by their mind, or is more cerebral, in their learning, like learning forte, it's really
Right.
how we're structured, like what we do first. Go come learn about crystals from that approach, and
Okay.
you'll meet people that are more like-minded and
Mhm.
can explain, like the physical makeup and molecule of the crystals themselves, where you can find that, how you can distinct one from Morocco versus one from Brazil. That's really interesting. I always like to, take note and mental note, like, oh, my fluorite is from China. It's different from my fluorite in Mexico, and here's the difference.
Ah, right,
Um,
right.
yeah, so that would be one way. Another way is, it was a child, like when I was 8 and I lived in Monterey, and this is also on my website. I was planting these marigolds, and I was just like this little dirty kid all the time, and I thought I came across gold. It was like little pieces of pyrite, and I was this quiet little girl, but I had these in my pocket. And one kid said, and I showed it to one neighborhood kid, and he made fun of me. He said, "That's fool's gold." And he made fun of me the rest of the year about me holding on to fool's gold. And so I was like, oh, but I was always into it because my fourth grade teacher, which was the following year, he would use jade as a reward. So under the Central Coast, there's a big jade plate under the coastline.
Mhm.
After the winter storms, they break up, and they break off the big jade plate, and it surfaces on our beach. So anybody who lives between like Monterey and probably Cambria on the West Coast might come across some jade pieces on the beach. And so my fourth grade teacher was a prospector. He would go out in the beaches and he would literally snorkel for jade, and he'd bring it back to class. And there were rewards for anybody who got like locations and geography and geology right. He would use that, and I would have this little jade collection. I was just so excited about it, and still to this day, I go to Monterey. My sister lives there, and I'll like look on the beaches just to see if I could find jade, and I do. But
Oh, that is so cool.
yeah, so that's how I got, like, this goes way, way, way back for me, and it surfaces throughout my life here and there. But I think now it's just a true, like, it's a true connection all the time.
Right.
I wear it. It's in the house. I utilize it. It's just, I give it out. I share knowledge with like young kids whenever they come up to my pop-up markets. I offer little agate slices, and I give them a little lesson on, the formation of agate.
Oh, wow. That is so cool. Your story of pyrite reminded me when I was young. and our class went on a field trip to Knott's Berry Farm. I don't know if you've ever done this, but you know how they have you can pan for gold
Yes.
at Knott's Berry Farm?
Uh-huh.
And they would give you this little tiny tube with little specks of pyrite in there. And
Uh-huh.
that was like, I mean, it was such an amazing thing for me. Like, I was so, like, that was probably my first introduction to maybe crystals from what I remember. But I just remember always wanting to go to Knott's Berry Farm and always wanting to do that pan for gold thing because
Uh-huh.
I just thought it was so amazing. And I just thought, like, oh, wow, when you're little, you think it's real gold,
Yeah. Yeah.
but that totally triggered a memory for me when you were talking about that.
Well, that's how they discovered that pyrite is not real gold, here in
Right.
California. It's part of California history. So,
Yes.
so this is another great thing, somebody who wants to, start to understand it is throughout history. It's in the history
Hmm.
books. It's also in the Bible. Gosh, I used to remember exactly which chapters and verses talk about crystals and utilizing them for in battle in the shields of the warrior of the troop. I'm saying the wrong word. Some of the bishops would have it, I believe, and I could be wrong because I'm trying to remember the story. And then which ones were actually in the shields? There was 9, and they all represented certain things. But anyway, it is throughout history. In fact, jewelry, certain stones were utilized in jewelry for royalty because they did believe in the
Right.
metaphysical properties, and in the crowns themselves, there are certain pieces that are in the crowns, and they're laid out in specific ways, and it's because of the metaphysical properties, and that's part of culture. If you want to understand other people and other cultures to this day, look back in the history and look at how things were utilized. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, and sometimes because I do live shows when I sell my jewelry, so I do live shows on like Poshmark Live or whatnot or platforms like that, and a lot of times people are just so curious. Like because sometimes I'll do gemstone jewelry shows,
Mm-hmm.
and people are just so curious. They'll say, "Oh, what does that stone do?" or "What does it mean?" or should I wear it? To a certain event or for a certain reason or whatever the case may be. And so I think there's always an intrigue, or maybe people are just so drawn to it because they may not fully understand the gemstones or the meaning behind it, but people are always so curious, and I notice that it's always a very positive reaction. I've never had anybody react negatively to any type of crystal, gemstone, anything, because most people are drawn in by the beauty, and then they get curious, like, what does it mean? How can
Mm-hmm.
I use this, in their everyday life?
Mm-hmm.
So, with
Uh-huh.
that being said, like, do you find that people come to you not only for jewelry but also for education and information as well?
Uh-huh. Oh yeah, all the time. And I think it's what you said there was key. They're led by their curiosity, and that's the
Hmm.
best thing you can do. Let yourself be curious. Now, no one's imposing anything, um,
Right.
any sort of belief. Everything I say is supported by what I've learned in books, what has been passed down, through like culture. But I never say, well, this is what it is, and that's absolute. It is, in what it comes down. I just read a blog recently, and I forgot the name of the blog. It was about a gal who she was a travel blogger, and she received a bottle, a gemstone bottle, glass bottle
Hmm.
with
Hmm.
that hold water, and there's a theory behind it, and there's also a study behind it. A 13-year water study, actually, things that if you expose water to certain things, the theory was that water has memory, and it memorizes the
Yes.
energy of other things
Yes.
around it, right? So this gemstone bottle was, the gemstone itself offers an energy frequency, and it's supposed to supercharge the water. But then there's also a lesson on how to utilize it. So she wrote about it, and she was like, she never had crystals. She was never in the crystal world, but she was curious about it. So she took it, and she called the company that made it and
Hmm.
had a conversation around it. And they said, well, the best way to utilize it is every time, you drink water from it, have an intention. What do you want to feel? What do you want? Where do you want to direct your energy? Um, you know, just encompass that in the moments that you're drinking the water, and then that's it. And so she did that. I think it was a few weeks, and then she just fell in love with her water bottle. And and then there was a follow up blog that I read. I'm pretty sure it was in the New York Times about it is what you believe in, and that's true across the board. No one's gonna you know what you believe in, what are your value system and your belief, and that carries through in your life. And when we have conflict is when we go against our own values and beliefs. So
Mm.
I, I'm just going to say for anybody out there to just be led by curiosity, because that's how everything got invented in the first place. Like, can I get over that mountain, in the 14th century? Can I cross the ocean with the ship? All these things were done out of curiosity, and look where we are today. And if you continue to be led by curiosity, you don't know what you'll find, but you might discover something that's full of joy. So,
So true. So true. All right. So, my next question has to do with recognizing and identifying gemstones. Um, like I said, because a lot of us, we buy jewelry, estate sales, auctions, yard sales, whatever the case may be. And sometimes people are like, they don't know how to identify stones, or sometimes there's glass stones made to look like crystals and gemstones. So, do you have any tips on how to recognize and identify gemstones? Like if we're looking for jewelry out in the wild, or maybe we're looking to buy, beads or something to make our own stuff. Like, what do you recommend, or how do you approach that?
oh, well, I know I get mine from a reputable dealer,
Hmm.
and that's so anybody who's going into business, you just ask around, talk to other people who are doing something similar.
Right.
You want to be able to feel it. I believe there's heat is absorbent in stone,
Hmm.
and so that's one way if you were just to figure it out, like if you were like you had nobody else around. But also there are tools out there that people can buy to determine, and they're not really expensive, to determine like the hardness scale, and
All
you can
right.
figure it out, right? But if you I would think if you're buying it like at a garage sale or an estate sale, you would probably want to take somebody with you who's an expert at it, like looking at fine stones, and the way they're cut. That's the best way to determine it, and just educate yourself.
Right.
You know,
Right.
what do you look for? How do you know if it's a real stone? Well, glass, they don't have flaws. Real stones do.
Hmm.
Um, and if you're looking at something small, you can determine whether or not you'd have to like have equipment, little glasses. You'd have to know what you're looking for. What
Right.
inclusions are you looking for just to prove that it's a real stone? Um, but
Right.
I do the same thing. I'll come across an estate sale and go, ooh, um, and I want to buy, I want to jump the gun, but I usually don't.
Yeah. Yeah. There was a thing I saw on TikTok not too long ago where a lot of the crystal girlies who sell crystals, gemstones, whatever, um, they were talking about how a lot of the stones, I guess, were fake and they were made out of glass and they were treated to look like certain stones, like aura
Mhm.
quartz and things like that. And so I always wonder, about that as it relates to jewelry, because some people don't care, right? We have some people who buy jewelry because they don't care. They just like it if it's pretty, and they don't care if it's real or not. They just like it. And then there's people like me who are more picky and I want, authentic, real, as much as I can afford to.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, but I wouldn't consider myself an expert, but I do consider myself more educated than the average person. So, and what you said about the temperature, like gemstones are usually pretty cold when you first touch them. I know a lot of people use that as an indicator,
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, I think you're right. It's just a matter of handling them, seeing them, comparing them to the best of your ability, and
Mm-hmm.
then taking your time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you have to take your time. But real stones, they're not perfect. And
Hmm.
so that if it's too perfect, you could take what are those little things called? I
A
forgot.
loop.
Yes, and look at them closely because they do have inclusions. They are not
Yes.
perfect. Even diamonds, even like some of the most expensive diamonds, they still have inclusions. And that's actually the best I think I could compare it to is when I explain that, oh, why is this stone more, it's still an amethyst. Why is this expensive and this is not? It's same weight. Well, it's they're very, very different. The grades are very different. And it's if you
Right.
like the way diamonds are graded, it's similar. So gemstones, semi-precious stones are graded in a similar way, and plus the darker ones are harder to mine. They're down deep.
Yes.
They have
Yes.
lots of minerals, and that is what we see is the mineral content and concentration in the stone.
All right. So it's a lot to think about for sure, So if you are interested in gemstones in any way, shape, or form, you're going to have to devote some time to learning and educating yourself, because it's a lot. And this is we're only talking about, as it relates to jewelry, let
Mhm.
alone people who just collect or they use it for art and home decor or whatever,
Mhm.
or in their healing practices, right? Because some people look for crystals, because they're crystal healers, or maybe they're like, like what you were sharing earlier about somebody who just knows um, how to apply crystals as a healing modality as opposed to just something to wear or display or whatever.
Mhm. Yeah, there's um, so many experiences that I've had with crystals. But when in relationship to jewelry, I love feeling them. I love them touching me. I love they actually are functional as far as so the energy frequency comes from the color itself. And if light
Hmm.
shines through it and touches your body, it changes things, on that level, and it just continues. It just continues, and your body absorbs that color frequency. That's what I've learned and how I've used it. I don't know if anybody else have tried that before, but there's all sorts of articles. Oh, you can place it here, you can place it here, and just lay down and meditate. And it does come down to the light hitting your body, and we all there is light therapy out there. There is
Hmm.
there's sound therapy, but all frequency that comes through and hits our body helps us in different, or it can hurt us if it's a low frequency. It just depends, right? Our body is functions on a certain scale, a frequency scale, and
Right.
when we stay on that scale, then we're okay. We're doing well. But it's when we fall out of that scale is when things start to probably manifest in a negative way, and maybe we get ill, maybe we catch something, maybe we things like that. But anyway, I'm no physician. I'm just that's my experience. Just so I'm making a disclosure, anybody out there. But that's my experience with utilizing crystals. And one time, this was actually back in 2019. We were in Las Vegas, and we bought this big amethyst, and at a store, and we brought it home, and I put it in the living room. We lived in this house since 2004. No one hung out in the living room since like we moved in. Nobody. And we raised 3 kids here. Once I put that in, like the kids started coming and watching TV in the living room. They started talking in the living room. They started hanging out in the living room. And I'm like, hey, so this works. And of course,
Yes.
yes, and amethyst is about connectivity. It's about, what connecting to others. It's about your seventh chakra, tuning into intuition and all the things you
Yes.
don't see, the activities that you do, like the unsaid stuff between the two of you, you and your husband, you and your kids, all that. That's what it did for me and my family. It brought them all together in one space. I'm like, huh, that's
That is
interesting.
so sweet.
And I told my husband, you see?
Yes, I love it. I love it.
He's more practical than I am, but
Yeah, men usually are.
that's a good thing.
All right, so let's kind of pivot into talking about your business because I think it's amazing. I love
Yeah.
your website. I love what you're doing. So, I know you shared a little bit about how you kind of got started, but as it relates to your business now, um, like how did you figure out your like ideal customer and what types of jewelry and crystals and gemstones that you wanted to um, I guess create a business around or like how did you figure all of that out? Because I think that's what trips a lot of people up. It's like they know they want to start a business. They know they want it to be jewelry related,
Mm-hmm.
but a lot of people don't know, how to decide or how to
Oh
come up
my
with a
gosh.
niche or anything like that. So how was that? What did that look like for you?
Um, so initially it was about what I liked and what was
Right.
was attracting me, right? And so I was my own avatar. I didn't figure that out
Um,
until later. I'm like, oh, so all my girlfriends were like buying the jewelry, right? So, and also that is proven your network are the people that are going to buy your stuff just from out the gate, your family and friends, right? So
right.
it's just when you get beyond that is when all this like this understanding of business. How do you grow? How do you find the niche, or how do you find the people, like that specific type of avatar that's going to be attracted to your stuff, right? So that was like I hunkered down for the last I say 15 months, maybe a little more, to understand like what does that all mean if I want to grow, and it certainly isn't easy. But then if you flip it, once you get to that point where you understand things, then you turn back around and go, oh, that was easy. Why was it so hard? It's the demographic, right? Who's the biggest pool of buyers in the air in your area? Like,
Right.
and my girls, I would chalk it up to teenage girls, but and girls in general, young girls, because they love crystals. They're just so open, and they're just so curious about
Hmm.
crystals. Unless you're older and you're more attracted to like the structure of the jewelry, and the bold um, uh, design work around the jewelry, because that's what it was attracting me, is like, I like these big pieces. I'm a little
Hmm.
girl, I'm really short, but I like these big pieces on me, because they were just, they stood out. and the,
Yes, yes, like
and
the statement
yeah,
jewelry pieces.
yeah,
Yeah, I
yeah.
like
So
those too.
that's how I started. I'm like, oh, I like these. But now I'm more. I love wearing jewelry, but I'm more specific. What am I doing today? So my jewelry is tailored around what am I doing today. So I have this, like, my collection is pretty big, and I experiment. Is it going to work for me? When I make things, is it going to work for me
Hmm.
because I'm so busy? Is it going to work for me? Um, uh, like, things like that. I guess that's the best way that I describe utilizing my jewelry. But going out into the business world, it does come down to who is going to be your first buyer. So you're more likely to sell to people that are going to be more like you, because you're going to make things that you like. After that, if you want to grow, then beyond that, who's the biggest buying pool that's attractive, that you'll attract? And you have to look at the demographics around you. You have to look, well, what did you like in the beginning? and then, you just make a niche around that. And I think
Right.
that's the best way to sum it up. And it also depends on your price point. There's one gal that I met at a pop-up market, because a lot of times we do pop-up markets. Since 2020, people didn't want to go shopping in the malls, so all
Mm-hmm.
these pop-up markets in all of California, and I would think all over everywhere, got really popular.
Mm-hmm.
Beyond the art and wine festivals, but just these open markets. And they attract certain people. So. Long story short, I met this one gal. She also did crystal. She used crystals, and she would make these hand wired crystal jewelry, and they look like, I don't want to say scarves, but they sat on you like these fluffy scarves, and they're just
Mm-hmm.
gorgeous. But we're at the same market, and I thought, well, that's something you would find in like the Wynn Hotel in Las Vegas, or like one of the really high end hotels. And here she was selling it for probably a fraction of the price at the open market than I would expect to find. And so I think her demographic really needed to be very specific in a very specific area, because they were just stunning. They just
Mm-hmm.
floated on the neckline, and she also made these bracelets that floated on the wrist. And I thought, well, yeah, we're in a kind of a posh market here, but that I wouldn't expect to find here. And they were stunning. So it just depends on where you would find the biggest demographic of the people that you would see wearing this.
Mm-hmm.
And she wore them. She was this delicate, beautiful European woman, and she just loved the way things like floated. She was like, she was an artist for sure. Um, so that's how you think of. You have to look at things from. You have to step back from your stuff that you love, and look at them as who could wear them. How do you look at the people around you? Go to a mall and see
Mm-hmm.
what they're wearing. If that's what you really want to do, expand your business from just the stuff that you love, and the people, your friends and family that buy. Go to the mall, look at the people who are shopping, look at what they're wearing, and see, could they be wearing the stuff that you're making? And if
Mm.
it's not there, go to another place that's saturated and see if that's the place where you would find people, you know, like like the fair, or maybe the streets of a metropolitan area, things like that. Or maybe
Yeah.
it's somewhere specific, like Las Vegas, or maybe, Melrose, or maybe, things like that. Maybe it is an art and wine festival. A lot of us go to these art and wine festivals and people expect to see something unique. They want to get something unique. They don't want something that's a cookie cutter stamp. They could get that at Macy's.
Right.
No
Right.
offense. I love Macy's. But,
Well, I do too. I do too. But that's interesting too, because also, like you said, looking at what's around you, you can also kind of tap into what is trendy, what is popular, what people are buying, what people are looking for, how
Mhm,
people are styling certain pieces. Because as jewelry resellers, a lot of times what dictates what we sell is what we have access to and what we can source.
mhm,
Because sometimes you'll find beautiful vintage jewelry pieces, sometimes you'll stumble across a whole lot of gemstone jewelry pieces or handmade jewelry pieces or whatever. So I think, like you said, it's about looking at what people are wearing or what they're buying, um, and it's also about what do you have access to? What can you get that you can turn around and sell to your buyer or your client or however,
mhm,
because I think a lot of people get hung up on the actual sourcing part of a jewelry business, and a lot of people don't know like how to find the stuff they want to sell, even though they know, like they'll say, I know I want to sell crystal or gemstone jewelry. I just don't
mhm.
know where to find it, or I don't know where I can get it wholesale, or I don't know, where or how. right? So that's what I've
Yeah.
come across a lot. A lot of people have told me that.
Oh, I understand. I love vintage jewelry too. I
Oh,
think
so do
that,
I. I collect it.
yeah, so if anybody's out there that is considering that, or maybe does that, on the side, like a side
Hmm.
hustle, um, that's it's such a value because you have an eye for like really great craftsmanship, and so you
Yes.
can hone in on that. And everybody wants something unique. It doesn't, I really feel that, there's one piece or two pieces that have always been passed down through families. But there's always, so everybody has the desire to express themselves, and jewelry is the most, I think everybody does that with jewelry. So
Hmm.
to find something vintage that's just handcrafted, and real, whether it's real, metal, or it's real, gemstones, semi-precious, or precious, stones. Um, yeah, I don't think there's enough of that, because it's just beautiful, and everybody
Yeah.
wants something beautiful, and to wear it. They're also conversation pieces, if you, and I know when I
Yes.
wear my big stuff, they're like, oh, look at that, and we,
Yes.
so yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point. Because whenever I wear something like really noticeable, yeah, someone's always going to comment on it. They'll say, "Oh, that's so beautiful," or "Oh, what does that mean?" or whatever. So yeah, it's definitely a conversation starter for sure. And a
Hmm.
lot of people, when they see vintage jewelry, it triggers memories for them too. Because I was wearing a Sarah Coventry necklace a while back, and someone said, "Oh my gosh, my mom had that same necklace when I was growing up." And it was like, she was like, "Oh my gosh, you totally, reminded me that my mom had that." And I said, "Oh, that's so cool." So it's kind of interesting how you never know, like jewelry is always going to spark some kind of interest somewhere, no matter where you go.
Oh yeah. In fact, you made me think of, every time I go, on vacation or something, I will pick up a piece of jewelry, and I think about where I was every time I wear
Right.
that, and I think that for jewelry resellers, or anybody who's making something, go into the markets where there's tourists.
Hmm.
So I did a couple of events in Napa, and it was surprising to me that Napa was a tourist spot, because I grew up here, right in Northern California, and my parents would
Hmm.
take us wine tasting. We were little. We wouldn't taste. We were just floating around behind them, right? When they would get the glasses with the
Right.
name of the winery on it. And so I never thought of like Napa or Sonoma as a high tourist area. And I did these open markets and 3 times in Napa, and I was like, why are they all just buying jewelry? And not that I'm complaining, I didn't understand.
Uh-huh.
But when I go like to Hawaii, or I go to like Las Vegas or down now, I will always look at jewelry, and I will find something that will click for me to remind me that's where I am. And so that's another, like if someone's looking to go sell something somewhere, go to a place where there's the most tourists, and it's jewelry, because people do that. And I was talking to a girlfriend, because we're supposed to go to, Spain together. And I mentioned that. I said, oh, I got this little thing in Hawaii, in the North Shore, when we dropped off our daughter at college. And so it's like there's a whole story behind it, right? And she goes, I do the same thing. I buy jewelry when I go on vacation, like these things. And she showed me her earrings. I was like, oh my God. So it's a thing.
Yes.
Yeah. So you made me think.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, and the nice thing about jewelry, it's easy to pack, right? As a
Yeah.
souvenir. Like you don't got to get an extra bag. It's not going to add a whole bunch of weight. You
Hmm.
can wear it on the plane, so you don't have to worry about packing it or shipping it or anything like that. So yeah. But I want to talk about what you said about the pop up shops or the pop up markets, because I've done a podcast episode on how to do a pop up shop, but a lot of people are so intimidated and they're afraid, and they don't know how to go about it, like in their town or in their area or whatever. So, what tips can you give on doing a jewelry pop up shop or a pop up market or whatever?
Um, you know, uh, how did I, going back to 21, we didn't find a shop or a boutique or something that actually would work for us.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought, how did I get that idea? Um, it was in, I think there was a art and wine festival down that, like the first one opening up in Campbell or something, down in South San Jose. And it was next to a farmer's market. And I thought, yeah, you know what? I'm just going to do it. So I looked up the organizers of that one particular event. And then
Okay.
I learned that these organizers do multiple events. So when you find one, look them up, you'll see that they produce many, many, many others. And so you can take your pick of what you'd like to do. So it started off with an art and wine festival that was really small. And and then there was another one that someone had told me about. Once you get into the circuit and you start circulating and talking to other vendors, then
Mm-hmm.
people will tell you, oh, well, I did this and I did this. You could check out this. But usually these pop-up markets are organized um, by these small independent groups. And at least that's in my experience. And they do multiple events throughout the year. So you can, and they're
Yeah.
not in the same areas, they cover, there's a handful of organizers that I work with. And they do multiple events from like South San Jose all the way to beyond Marin. And so you start to learn who the kind of buyers and consumers that come to those markets, and then you start to understand, well, what's like the price point that they are used to. And if you're kind of a high-end jewelry maker, then you probably might want to find something different. I do all kinds. I take different kinds of jewelry to different events. And so like there's one particular one that's in it's in an open shopping mall, an outdoor shopping mall. It's called Santana Row. And I participate once a month in that. And they produce like 4 or 5 different markets around the Bay Area. But that's a very high end market. I
Mm-hmm.
say that because, the kids end up spending like $50, so it's different. But I also
Right.
like doing the fairs, and the fairs are fun because what I bring to the fairs is I took an old gumball machine and I rigged it.
Oh, yes. I saw that on your website.
Oh yeah. And it's a big attractor. It's a lot of fun for the kids. It's part of my educational piece. And then I also bring like the handcrafted jewelry, but I bring the simpler ones, the stuff that I wear every day, things
Mm-hmm.
like that, and the simple stuff, So I'll take that, and then of course I'll take a handful of different gemstones, and that's how we do the pop up markets at the fairs. I also do. I experiment with other event organizers. I do spiritual events, which it is a lot of fun. Get to know all the people working in the areas of Reiki and tarot cards and gemstones, of course, and psychics, and that's a lot of fun. So I learn from talking to others. I also do a couple of just specific gemstone pop up markets that they have the biggest retailers here in Northern California come, and I'm more about education.
Mm.
So I talk to the families and the kids, and I'm more approachable and fun, and that's just my vibe. I'm just like, more whimsical than anything. And I like to gamify things. So, anyway, so long story short, just pick something that you would attend if you were thinking about, like, anybody out there. If you were like, if you go to a farmer's market, try that. You'll start to see, people that you're familiar with, and that's a good start. Um, the equipment that you need is very minimal, really. A table, a chair for you to sit on, and a tablecloth, really. Um,
Right.
Beyond that, your marketing materials, your inventory and your marketing materials, a flyer,
Mm-hmm.
a business card. You don't need much. People don't have high expectations in that. Then you start to develop your own brand. What do you like? I have, I have my own packaging, but it's not a high end packaging. The jewelry, yes, but the gemstones, no. And sometimes, the smaller gemstones are in a capsule because they come out of a gumball machine. But that's pretty much it. You don't have to spend a lot on branding. Your brand ends up becoming is reflective in the personality that you put out in
Right.
pop-up markets. Yeah.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
And also too, like, your own personal style or your own personality even, some of us are really like bold and out there, and some of us may have a more laid back approach, but all of it works. All of it works. You don't have to be one or the other in order to make this be a success for you. It's just a matter of what can you do and how do you show up consistently.
Mm-hmm.
So, because I know the other thing too that shies a lot of people away from the pop-up markets are like the vendor costs, because it has to be worth your while to rent a vendor space or buy a table, whatever the case may be. And so, do you think that is something like, if like, should you be at a certain stage or a certain point in your business before you consider that, or do you think even a beginner could make that work?
I think a beginner can make that work. Anybody can make that work.
Okay.
I have to admit, my first one, I broke even.
Okay.
It took a lot of work to break even for 2 days.
They are a lot of work.
Yeah. I honestly, just, but just did it. And I wasn't really prepared. I had a tent to stay out of the sun. That's as prepared as I could be. But I got to know a lot of vendors there, and I still talk to them to this day. A lot of artisan vendors. They're just amazing, amazing people. Like t-shirt makers. Like one guy
Mhm.
made t-shirts, and his t-shirt you could scan with your phone. There's a QR code buried in the artwork in the t-shirt.
Oh,
And it was a
really?
whole movie. Like you meet people like that, and that's inspiring, to
That's
like,
cool.
yeah, like talk to these people. And one lady who made soap, who I still talk to this day, and her business had been ongoing for like 18 years. But you have good markets, and then there are, not so good markets. And sometimes it depends on the area, sometimes it depends on the weather, sometimes it just,
Mhm.
you can't guess what it is. But you're going to have bad days. Even the ones that are consistent and high end, you're going to have bad days. And maybe you do break even. The goal is to always break even, because if you break even, you're marketing out there. That's another thing. It took me
Right.
this long to clue in, oh, I could use this stuff for this time that I'm here to market. And so I hand out business cards with QR codes, and I'll put a sticker that has like a promo code. They can go to the website. If they don't see something here, they can go to the website and look at more, or they could buy off the website and have it shipped to them for free. Things like that, like there, you can utilize all your time. There's no waste of time. There's no waste of energy. You just have to put yourself out there. And that's what business is about, is taking the risk. And
Yes.
but you have to believe in yourself and your art. Everything that you make, and that's really where the creativity and the second and third chakra comes into play, is your creativity is converted into transaction. And that's business. Okay. So believe that you can do it. Believe that your energy and the things that you're creating, it is meant for somebody else. Believe in that. And once you
Mhm.
have that foundation, whether you're, recycling vintage jewelry, or you're making your own, it's still a conversion of your energy, your thoughts, and what you believe in into a transactional moment with somebody else. And especially if somebody's out there like thinking, oh, like reselling vintage jewelry, I don't know about that. I don't know if I can, because I have to pay for this stuff and then go and sell it to this. There's somebody out there that's going to say, oh my God, my grandmother had something similar, and it was
Yes.
burned in a fire, and I'm getting this. And it
Mm,
doesn't, the price doesn't matter. So understand that it's not it, you are connecting people to something that's valuable to them. So
right.
jewelry is actually an emotional value, because
Hmm.
what is how does it make you feel? Because it makes me feel something, and that, to me, that's valuable, because that's why we come to this earth. We're here because we want this emotional experience, right? We're here because
Right.
we want to connect, and that's what it's all about. And jewelry is just one vehicle, and it's a lovely vehicle, like,
Yes.
so anyway, but take the chance, go out there. They're not very, so as far as like an investment is concerned, low end, I actually did something in San Francisco, low end, $35, low end.
Hmm.
Okay. I did more than just break even. But that's the low end. High end, $200, maybe $400, depending on how specific it is.
Yeah,
So,
that is high. Here in Vegas, some of them go up to like six, seven, $800, depending on where it is.
uh-huh,
Because they do a lot of them at the casinos and stuff.
uh-huh,
So, yeah, some of them can be really, really pricey.
uh-huh. So, you want high traffic area.
Hmm.
For sure. So look at the markets. Do your homework. If you are a little apprehensive, do some homework. Um, but they come around every year, so it's an annual thing. You don't want to wait a whole year and do your homework. You do just talk to people. There are a couple of groups on Facebook, I'm sure, in your areas, wherever you guys are. You can just jump online and try and find them. You can I've done that a couple times, but really I've talked to vendors that are present, and those are the best resources.
Yeah,
Just get their opinions. And people say, oh yeah, that's good, that's good, it's a little pricey, but it's good. That's a good signal. That means you're going to make 3 to 5 times more than what you invest in. So
right.
yeah,
So it'll be worth it.
yeah. So look at their eyes. They go, that's good. Then take it. Go take a chance on it. People will say, well, sometimes it's okay. I don't know. It really does depend on the traffic
Yeah.
that goes by, because also you got to remember, jewelry it's an emotional decision. People have to look at it. People have to feel it. People have to be
Hmm.
attracted to it. Um, Unless it's a practical decision. So, the holidays are coming up. This is where men
Hmm.
go out and go shopping, get into the areas where, good places that I've done, wineries, and breweries. Breweries in October, November are fantastic. If
Oh,
someone
that's good
is,
to know.
yeah, if someone's at doing a pop up market in your like a local brew house, take it,
Hmm.
do it. It's a low investment. You support the breweries. All the men come out. Sorry guys, but they are practical. They want to get their stuff in and out, and they look at things. They know their wives. They know their daughters. They know their significant other. They know what
Right.
they like, and they don't question it. They're not emotional buyers. They just go, that's what's gonna
And it's
show up.
convenient. They're like,
And
oh,
it's
I can get a beer and buy something for the wife.
mm-hmm.
Great.
Yeah, all done. And so I don't need to say sorry. They're so smart. They just do it all at once, And
Yeah, yeah, that's a great
yeah.
idea. That's a great
So
idea.
and so this is probably the best time to actually go and experiment. Is this We're at the end of September, or are we at the end? We are at the end of
Almost.
September. So I would suggest this is the best time to do it, because people do most of their shopping between October, November, and early December. So this is
Hmm.
get in if they're not sold out, or you can collaborate with a location like a tasting room. They're going to have parties, local parties that, or businesses that come and have, company parties, or whatever. You could just offer to do, hey, can I organize something for you? Or can I just pop up I do this. I would love to just pop up on an afternoon. It's like a 3 or 4 hour dedication. So
Hmm.
take a chance.
Yeah, that's a great idea too, because also I know here a lot of schools and churches and community
Yeah.
centers also have like holiday bazaars, or craft fairs, whatever the case may be. And that might be something that could work too, because usually the price point to get a table there is much lower.
Yes.
Um, and
Yes.
that's like, not as intimidating as like a big wine show or or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah. But you do want to get in where there's a lot of traffic. So
Right, right.
that's
I agree with
important.
that. I agree
Yeah.
with that. And the other thing too, to offset costs, because this is what I have done, is I will split the cost of the table with somebody else, like either another jewelry seller, and maybe we just have different types of jewelry we're both showing. So that's an option too.
Mhm.
If you find a show and it's really pricey, maybe you can go half with somebody, and then you guys can split the table in half
Mhm.
and do that. Plus, it's good to have somebody with you too, so you're not there by yourself. If you got to go to the bathroom or something like that.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. That's
Because
the
I've
only,
had that happen.
yeah. That's the only thing when you're out there by yourself working and you go, oh, wait, shoot, I need a break.
Yeah, yeah, and you don't want to leave your stuff there with nobody to man the table. So I always recommend even if you have to bring your kids or something like that.
Yeah.
Bring somebody.
Yeah, I've brought my kids, and yeah, I've done that. And usually my husband's my sidekick. But if you don't have anybody, these organizers are pretty generous, and they'll do something for you. They'll stay at your,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, they'll stand at your table for 10 minutes or whatever.
Yeah, don't be
Yeah,
intimidated by that. It's, go out there. It's really about getting out there and showing off your stuff and connecting to people. So I would make those the priorities, connecting to people. Yeah.
totally agree. Totally agree. All right, Rosie. Well, is there anything else you'd like to share with us, about your business, about
Well,
crystals, gemstones, anything?
well, my website is juicygems.com. You can follow
Yes,
me
I
on.
will put a link for
Okay,
everyone. Yeah, I'll put a
thank
link
you.
to your website as well as your socials, because I think I just followed you on Instagram, so I'll put that there too.
Awesome. Anybody can message me on Instagram if they have a question about gemstones or want some more resources or other people to follow. There's some incredible people on Instagram,
Oh, I
but
know.
I know they're just, and
A lot.
there's such a big resource out there. Don't be discouraged. Stick to two things. Make two things your priority. If you make jewelry, your art. Um, there
Mhm.
it serves a purpose. If you haven't defined it yet, that's okay. It serves a purpose. Follow your mind and your heart. Just get out there. If you are a vintage reseller, you're doing this world a humongous service. You're one, you're recycling. Two, there is craftsmen out there like that do not exist or as much as they did back then. So
Right.
they carry the history and energy of the past, and that's exquisite. So you provide a huge service to those out there seeking your vintage jewelry. Um, but come visit me. If you're in Northern California, I list where I'm at. You can show up to my pop-up markets this Saturday. I will be at Walnut Creek on Broadway Plaza, which is
Oh,
right.
great.
It's an open market as well. And my holiday schedule is about to be published. We are also working on a few specific things where we designed these great big gem ball machines to be working with some museums and international airports. So hopefully by the
Oh, that's cool.
mid 2025, we'll start to get those in the airport museums and in Northern California museums. We're really excited about that.
Wow.
Um,
Well,
it's
you'll have to come back and let me know how that goes, because I would love to, check in with you again and see what you're doing.
Oh yeah, yeah. On Instagram, you can see where our prototype is. It's in
Hmm.
a store called the Emporium with the Sunset Mercantile event group. They do all the events in San Francisco, and so our prototype is in the store on 8th and Irving, and we just joined that co-op store. So you
Oh,
can
that's
find.
cool.
You can find our crystals and jewelry, our handcrafted jewelry there, and our gumball machine, our gem ball machine, not gumball.
That's so cool. That's so cool. Yes, yes. Well,
Yeah,
I
and
just I can't thank you enough for spending this time with me and sharing your experience and your journey. It's so awesome.
oh, it was my pleasure. Thank you. This is a lot of fun, and I had it. Yeah, it was just joyous to hang out with you. Thank you.
All right. Well, it won't be the last time. Like I said, I would love to check in with you and, see how you're doing. And if there is anything I can do, um, to help promote your business, in any way, please reach out to me and let me know.
Oh, my pleasure. And again, if anybody has a question, they could reach out on Instagram. Happy to answer.
Awesome. Awesome. All right, Rosie. Well, thank you so much. And yeah, I'll be checking in with you again really soon.
Awesome. Bye, guys.